Welcome everyone to the DAZN Soccer Show. Loads of Premier League roundup coming your way. I'm joined by former Arsenal forward Leanne Sanderson and former Real Madrid and Leeds centre-back Jonathan Woodgate. Let's start with the big one, Anfield. Big game for Liverpool, right? It felt like it was first versus second. That's what it felt like in the build-up to the game itself, but it was second versus 11th, which is crazy. Liverpool get the job done. Mo Salah proving that class is certainly permanent and form is temporary. How would you sum up the game, Leanne?
Yeah, I thought it was the most amazing 1-0 game, to be honest. It had everything, didn't it? You had managers getting sent off. And I think that's what we love about the Premier League, when the managers are going at it on the sideline. I feel like Salah, the finish was amazing, but we were talking about it before off air about the ball he played to Jota, and the save and that type of stuff. There's small things that Salah does that I don't think many players can do. And I think he's a top player, but I thought the game had everything. Cancelo ended up making a mistake for the goal, and he's been one of my favourite players this year to watch. I think he's been brilliant, but I thought the game was amazing. And I said on the show last year, that, Liverpool, you can't write them off. Although they're in 11th place going in, I wouldn't say it's 1 against 2, Addy. I know you're a Liverpool fan, but at the same time, going into the game, I felt like Man City had this one wrapped up. Yeah. Yes, it's at Anfield, but, and obviously they had the goal disallowed, which I think rightfully so. I mean, I know VAR's come under a lot of scrutiny, especially this weekend and last weekend with all the decisions. But I do feel like the goal was rightfully disallowed. But I felt like City were going to win this one pretty comfortably. But Liverpool, Anfield, fantastic goal, and had everything, didn't it? Action and everything.
Yeah, so many standout performers, Jonathan. But I guess the two I want you to focus on, if you can, is that of Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez, right? A lot of people have been talking about Van Dijk this season. Gomez has come back from injury. How good is he? He's now kind of down the pecking order when you think of Liverpool centre-backs. How good was Gomez and Van Dijk, do you think?
I thought they were magnificent. I think when you play against Erling Haaland, you have to be at it. And both of them were. I mean, Van Dijk's been in for a lot of scrutiny this season, but like you said, class is permanent. And for me, he's still one of the world's best centre-backs. He's proved it over the years now. And with Gomez coming in, who's had a lot of injuries, and it's been tough for him. But if you remember a few years back, Gomez and Van Dijk had that partnership together, and they were both magnificent together. I watched Liverpool Rangers live at the weekend. On Wednesday night in the Champions League. And Gomez played right back, and he was equally as good as right back as he was as centre back. But to step in such a high profile game against Erling Haaland, who is an absolute monster at the minute and scoring goals left, right, and centre, I thought they both done a brilliant job. And the clearance off the line by Van Dijk and the reading of the game of Gomez, they complemented each other really well.
Can I stick with you very quickly? Sorry, Leanne. Can I stick with you, Jonathan, about Gomez? England are having problems at centre-back. We know the problems now they're having at right-back with the likes of Reece being out. It looks like Kyle Walker might be out as well. Is there a shout for Gomez, lastminute.com here, to get into the England squad for the World Cup?
Well, there's how many games to go? 7 games to go, I think, till they get that break. And it's late for him. Can he stay fit for those games? Being a nightmare with the injury scenario, but he has a chance. And the good thing about it as well, he can play right back and centre back. And when Gomez is playing really well, he can do that role. He can do that role equally well as a 3 in the back or as a full back if they play wing back. Not quite sure, but he has that versatility where he can fit into that area. And he's playing for an unbelievable club in Liverpool. He's played at the highest level. That's another thing. Going to the World Cup, might need players like Gomez.
What I was going to say about these two players as well is I think I said it last week on the show, people suffer with recentism. We spoke about Mo Salah last week, and I said I'd put him in second place for the Ballon d'Or. I think with Van Dijk and Gomez, as Jonathan said, they've had their injuries, which used to be a career-threatening injury, an ACL injury.
Yeah.
And I think, people, if a player has a couple of bad games, people start saying they're not at the races, then they score a goal like Salah, and all of a sudden they're great again. Yeah. And it sounds cliche, but you don't become a bad player overnight. And it's true. Joe Gomez, yes, he has had his injuries, but I do think it might be a bit too late for him to come. I think it's a lot outsider for him to get in the World Cup squad. I can't see that happening, but realistically, why not at this point? Because, for me, Reece James, it's massive that he's going to miss it. And then obviously Kyle Walker, it'd be between those two, I think, probably who would have played. And now we have that spot up for grabs, but I do think it's come a bit late. But Virgil van Dijk is one of the best centre-backs in the world. But I do think as well, at the same time, people have spoken a lot about the comparisons. Is he the greatest ever centre-back the Premier League's ever seen? And then they're forgetting about Rio Ferdinand, Vidic, John Terry. You know, the list could go on because people look at the here and now. But like I said, Joe Gomez, Van Dijk, they're two quality defenders. But because they might have an off day or a few bad games, people start saying, oh, you know, they're not at the standard anymore. No, they are. You could clearly see that yesterday.
All right, let's talk about the team at the top of the table, Arsenal. Again, it's incredible, right? Isn't it, this run right now? They're best in Premier League history. They're one of their best in the history of the club. They won 9 out of their first 10 games. Looking really good. Tough game going to Ellen Road. I thought Leeds were unlucky not to get a point at least. Maybe unlucky not to get 3 points, but Arsenal was showing, and I don't want to, you know, put words in your mouth here. Arsenal is showing that they're there. They're going to be there because they're winning games now that they're not supposed to win. And that's now 3 really good results on the bounce. Spurs, Liverpool and Ellen Road Leeds. That's not easy.
No, and I think it feels different at Arsenal this year. I've said it many, many times. You know, I think you get to a point at Christmas time and if Arsenal is still top of the league, you know, you have to start thinking about them potentially winning it.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of people are still saying City, Liverpool, but Arsenal, it's a different feeling. You can feel it around the Emirates. The stadium, you know, the atmosphere, the fans. My dad's a Gooner, but he still is reluctant to say he thinks they're going to win the league. He was just happy that City lost yesterday, so Arsenal was still the Invincibles. That was how happy he was. But at the same time, I think, you know, Arsenal just feel like they're on a good run. They're winning games. I mean, the Brentford game at the Community Stadium, you know, to win in that way they did, it was 4-0 in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And like they lost that game, that fixture at the beginning of last year when it was Brentford's first game, 2-1. So it's like you see the progressions. And I think sometimes people are too quick to write Arsenal off because they're like, oh, they haven't played against a top team yet. They've not beaten this team. Yeah, Man United beat them, but that was a bit of a shock, really. Man United beat Liverpool and Arsenal. No one expected that to happen after losing to Brighton and Brentford. So I think Arsenal, they're in a good run. Xhaka, I've said it so many times already. I've got to give him credit because I was very, very critical of him for many years. And I know a lot of Arsenal fans, but he's been fantastic this year. And I think you can finally see Mikel Arteta's plan coming into fruition. And I guess it goes to show if you have patience with some managers, patience sometimes pays off because the feeling feels different, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does feel different. But winning against Fulham 2-1, you know, they're coming from behind. They're showing great character. And hopefully for Arsenal fans, it can continue.
Yeah, I think we need Arsenol to sort of stay in there. We don't want Man City to just go away with it, do we? We need a big team to stay in there. Jonathan, I want to talk about Leeds, your ex-team. Unlucky, I thought. I thought Leeds could have nicked a point, maybe nicked all 3. They didn't deserve to lose that, did they?
They didn't deserve to lose at all. I thought they played really well. The intensity showed throughout the game. The created chances, Bamford missing the penalty. But with the Leeds, with losing Rafinha, we're losing Calvin Phillips also. They had to recruit better players in. It's hard to get better players than Rafinha and Calvin Phillips, but what they did, they brought some good players in with pace, which I thought could hurt Arsenal yesterday, and it did. And I thought they were unlucky in the end. What I did like about Arsenal's performance was they grinded it out and they didn't play well, but they got that victory. They got that. I remember years ago we used to talk about Arsenal, boring Arsenal 1-0, but that's what they did. They grinded that result out, and at the end of the day, they got the win.
Yeah,
It was against Bodo Glimt as well midweek.
Yeah.
It might not be pretty. I mean, the ball came off Saka's face and went in the back of the net against Bodo Glimt, but a win's a win, isn't it, at the end of the day? And as Jonathan said, you know, that's what they have to do. And they're winning 1-0, they're winning 2-1. They can win heavily. They look like they're flying.
Another team that's grinding out results, and no one's really talking about them, is Chelsea. Every time people are talking about that top 4 in title race, it's Tottenham, it's Liverpool, it's Man City, it's Arsenal. Chelsea and the Graham Potter so far unbeaten. And again, yesterday against Villa, I thought they were lucky. It's strange, right? 2-0 result. I doesn't feel it reflects how the game was. I thought Villa were unlucky. Chelsea scored 2. Mason Mount, 2 very, very good goals. What do you make of Chelsea's performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think Graham Potter's gone in there unbeaten. I do think it really helped the fact that he had 3 weeks to a month because it was during the international period to get himself settled in before his first game, you know, and obviously his first game was in the Champions League against Salzburg. They drew that game. But, you know, I think Graham Potter's a fantastic manager. I think obviously you can see the players at this point, you know, they have so many top quality players. It's about managing the players and egos and that type of stuff. And I think he's done a really good job so far. I don't think they've necessarily come up, when I saw the unbeaten run that he's on, I think they're winning games they're expected to win.
Yeah.
You know, people are gonna critique Arsenal and say, oh well, they beat Fulham and they should win that game. Well, you look at the fixtures Chelsea have had. Have they really been tested that much yet? I don't think so. But I love Aubameyang. I'm still one of the only people that seems to really enjoy watching him. You know, he scored as soon as he got there. And I think Mason Mount, you know, he's had an indifferent season this year, got the 2 goals. But I don't think Villa were at their best in any way, shape or form. And I think a lot of players at Villa are underperforming at this moment in time.
Yeah, big time. And sometimes the buck has to stop. I guess, Jonathan, with the manager, Steven Gerrard, look, he's not going to be judged on this result, but prior to that, they've just not been winning games they should be winning.
No, but they've been creating a lot of chances in games. And I thought yesterday they had a lot of chances. Kepa was outstanding in the game, absolutely outstanding. He made some crucial saves in the game. I think when you look at managers now, pressure's always on them. Pressure's on them no matter the result. If you don't play well, if you get the win, it just comes, and there's no doubt about it. He will be under pressure, but they've got to stay with him. They've got to do what Arsenal did with Arteta. The board's got to really back him and stick with the plan, stick with the process, because in this day and age now, there's too many young managers who find themselves out the game when the board hasn't stuck to what they believe in. It's too short term sometimes with managers. They don't get that chance to really give what they want to give to the football club, and I'm sure Steven Gerrard will be a success at Aston Villa. He just needs the time.
Do you think that? You look at the squad that he's assembled, and it's a squad I think that should be competing at least in the top 10. I understand what Jonathan's saying there, but there's some really big name players that are just not performing. Surely that comes down to the manager, no?
It's a combination of the two, because I think you look at Coutinho, when he came in there, when he was on loan, and then they obviously got the deal through the door. It was almost like during that loan period, he was amazing. And everyone was saying, oh my God, it's Phil Coutinho from when he was at Liverpool. And then now he's signed. It's almost like it's non-existent. Do I think they're a top 10 team when you look at their squad? Maybe, Danny Ings doesn't really seem to play. I like Danny Ings a lot, but Ollie Watkins for me is not going to get you double digits in a season. He's an honest player, but he's not got that, that feistiness I think you need to have in the Premier League. But when I look at their team, Steven Gerrard's made a big call at the beginning of the season. Tyrone Mings again, the mistake. I think they said, I saw a stat that said that he's made 5 mistakes that have led to goals, which is the only other outfield player other than a goalkeeper that's made those types of mistakes in games. Yeah. And I think Mings during the Euros last year was actually really, really good when he stepped in for Harry Maguire. But, Gerrard making those types of decisions, making McGinn captain, they have to show that it's paying off. I think that's a big call to do that, to change the captaincy. But I think at some point, I agree with Woody, you have to back the manager because you can't keep sacking managers. But has it been a success for Gerrard at Aston Villa right now? No, it hasn't been. It hasn't been, has it?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. And look, I mean, there are some Villa fans that are not happy with him still being there. I guess he's going to have to win his next 3 or 4.
Losing to Chelsea, that's expected. When I saw them, some of the boos, I'm thinking, not to be like that and pessimistic, but realistically, Chelsea are a top team. Yeah. I think some fans have to sometimes, take a step back, including myself, and think, actually, who are we playing against? Are they better than us? Not accept defeat, but be realistic.
Yeah, it's not losing to Chelsea. I think it's more maybe the draw against Forest a few days before that people don't like. Woody, let's talk about one of your former clubs, Newcastle. 5th versus 6th at Old Trafford, going to Manchester United. 0-0 in the end. I thought quite an entertaining 0-0. And I guess it's a reflection of where Newcastle are now, that Eddie Howe was disappointed not to go away with a bit more from that game.
Well, the history shows that Newcastle have only won there once in 50 years. So there was always, when you used to go to Man United as a player on Old Trafford, it used to be quite daunting because it was all the top players. Newcastle went there, so they didn't pay them any respect at all. They closed them down from the front. They were really aggressive. 2 wingers, Almiron and Murphy, were at them. Wilson was occupying the 2 centre-backs, and they matched them up in midfield. And they were good. They were really good. Joe Linton hit the bar and the post in the first half, and they could have been 1-up. Okay, later on in the game, Man United got a few chances with Rashford. But even when Newcastle went into a deep block, Man United had no one to really break them down. And Newcastle was so solid, they deserved the point. They absolutely deserved that point. I thought they were brilliant, really well coached by Eddie Howe. I think he's done a magnificent job. And what I also like about Newcastle is they haven't just thrown money at it left, right and centre when they can. They bought good players, bought solid players, Trippier, Byrne, Bruno, in the centre of their pitch, who's an absolute pleasure to watch. So they're just taking the time. I think Pope's obviously helped them as well. But they're just taking the time, and they deserve the point.
They could have had a couple of penalty shouts as well.
Yeah, very.
I'm a Man United fan, but
yeah.
I'm all about giving the right decisions, and it felt like they should have had a couple of penalties.
Yeah. What do you make of Man United so far this season? A player that I want you to single out for me as well is Bruno Fernandes. What do you make of Bruno so far this season? I don't see the special magic he had when he came into the club.
It's weird because I think Man United fans, we want Bruno to be really, really good because when he came in, his figures were unbelievable, weren't they?
Scary.
Completely, rejuvenated Man United on his own. But when I watch him now, he just looks frustrated. He's snatching at shots on the edge of the box. And I think Bruno playing at his best seems to play when he's angry, right? But it just seems like he's always angry lately, isn't it? Like everything he's angry, but no one really talks about that. They talk about Ronaldo.
Yeah.
If Ronaldo misses a chance and he wails his arms, they're like, oh, he's got a bad attitude. No, actually, he's just annoyed at himself. Whereas Bruno has probably, his attitude doesn't look great from time to time. And he's wearing a captain armband. But I do love Bruno, but I don't think his performances have been good enough. But then Man United this year, we don't get carried away. I know we went 4 games unbeaten, right? But I was at the Brentford game. We were absolutely woeful. Brighton, terrible. But then we go and beat Liverpool and Arsenal. Rashford does okay. But in the last couple of games against Omonia, the Cypriot team, literally, we just about won.
Yeah.
Scott McTominay in the last minute. And then we held on in Cyprus to win 3-2 in the end. But, you know, I think Newcastle, give them credit. You know, they look organised. But this is at Old Trafford as well. And like what he said, players used to not like going to Old Trafford. But they go there now thinking they can win because we don't look like we know, you know, have we progressed under Ten Hag?
Some people are calling it Eric Ten Solskjaer.
I know, I saw that and it did bother me. It did bother me. Because I do see, the one thing I do see, don't wind me up, is I do see a game plan, right? I did see that, right?
Yeah.
You can see we have a pattern of playing stuff. But against Omonia, we had like 24 shots, you know, 16 on target or some crazy stat. But why does it look like we don't have that fluidity that other teams seem to have? Like, you look at the players and it's almost like, okay, Sancho might have a day where he has a good game. Then the next game he's off. I don't know why players individually can't seem to find their consistency. It's really weird. Woody might be able to answer with that because I just felt like if I was on a good run, I was on a good run. I wouldn't just have one day where I'd be like, actually, I don't think players decide if they're going to turn up. But it just doesn't make sense to me because we don't seem to have any players that seem to be playing at that max. Malacia came, did really well. Now he's been off the boil and Luke Shaw's come back in and he's been better. So I just feel like we don't have any players, apart from Eriksen, that have actually been consistent. If you was picking an 11 now, the PFA best 11, how many Man United players would get in there?
None.
Exactly.
None.
Liam, you really missed Eriksen yesterday, by the way. Someone hit that killer pass because it was Fred and Casemiro in the centre of the pitch as the two holders, and there was no real threading of passes in between the lines. There was no runners in behind for an Eriksen to say hit, and it kind of played into Newcastle's hands because of that kind of one-dimensional.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it looks like Man United, still Man United. Chelsea going under the radar. Liverpool are back. Arsenal, maybe Arsenal fans can start dreaming. Thank you for joining us on the DAZN Soccer Show.